Hello, everyone. This is Jim Weiss. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to explain what we know and what we don't know about the recent settlement between the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice. And I'm going to actually put on the screen the exact statement that came from the National Association of Realtors and just quickly go over what we know and what we don't know. So this is straight from the website. You can look it up for yourself. The agreement that was reached on March 15th, which was just a couple of days ago, is going to resolve all the claims against the National Association of Realtors and any other pieces of litigation involved. Obviously, this litigation is still subject to court approval. And it says here that the NAR is going to continue to deny any wrongdoing in connection with the multiple listing service and the cooperative compensation rule, which is the heart of all the different lawsuits that have been going on. The other thing is that we will, as a National Association of Realtors, can pay out $418 million over the next 4 years to settle this agreement. So that's the good news. That's what we know. The two parties involved have agreed. We're just waiting for the court to say yes to it. And the expectation is that we will hear that fairly soon, that the court will agree to this. In addition to that final payment and releasing us from any other liabilities, they have agreed to put into place a new MLS rule that prohibits offers of broker compensation on the MLS. Now, this would mean that offers for broker compensation couldn't be communicated in any way on MLS, which means the field down at the very bottom where it says what the buyer agency commission is that's being offered would no longer be there. And any buyer agent commission would have to be negotiated between the buyer agent if they wanted the seller to be the one to pay it. So that's the big thing. They will not be offering any more cooperation agreements. We will have to change our contract slightly in North Carolina. The good news is that North Carolina is really poised in a great position with the outcome of this lawsuit, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So there will be no longer any offer of compensation for buyer agents cooperation agreement via MLS. It'll all have to be negotiated on a one-on-one basis. Essentially, what that means is you'll be acting as a buyer agent on your own, and you'll have to contact the listing agent and see if the seller is willing to pay any compensation for the buyer agent. We cannot do it through MLS anymore. So it'll be like all the non-member agents that come in from outside who we don't have a cooperation agreement with. And when they do and they want compensation, they ask if you're offering any, and then you sign an agreement saying that, yes, we will pay, the seller will pay some type of buyer agency commission. If the seller is not willing to do that, then the buyer agent would be on their own to come up with a way of paying for that. And to me, that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to change, is that the buyer is going to have to negotiate with the buyer agent upfront on what that compensation will be. And no longer will it say in the buyer agency agreement that we'll first seek compensation through MLS, because that's the thing that's been struck out. Now, we can still seek compensation. And so I said that we were already poised to be in a good position in North Carolina, because our buyer agency agreement already, if you explain it correctly, is an agreement between the buyer and the buyer agent. And the buyer agrees to pay whatever the commission is to the buyer agent. And then after that, it said, and if the MLS is offering any compensation, we'll seek that compensation first through MLS. That will go away. Now we'll still be negotiating our compensation as a buyer agent directly with the buyer. And then the buyer would be totally responsible for paying that commission to us. And I'm sure the wording will change. This says that the buyer agent will contact the listing agent to see if the seller is offering any compensation to buyer agents. And if they are, then there'll be a buyer agent compensation agreement signed between the buyer agent firm and the listing firm. So some of that is still going to have to be worked out, but it will no longer say that the first thing we'll do is to get our compensation through MLS. My guess is what's going to start happening is that sellers are not going to offer compensation. And that means that the buyer is going to have to pay the buyer agency commission directly to the buyer agent firm. And the real problem with that is right now, because of the system we have, buyer agent commission, because it's been being offered through MLS, has essentially been allowed to be added to the sale price. I mean, it's already built into the sale price. And so buyers are already financing their buyer agent commission. The problem is at this moment, there's really no mechanism. In fact, they would have to have some change in federal law to allow buyers to add the buyer agent commission on top of the sale price for buyers to be able to finance that. Otherwise, the buyers are going to have to come up with that money on their own. What that really means is on a $100,000 house, depending upon whatever that commission rate is that you have, if it's 1%, then it'd be $1,000. If it's 3%, it'd be $3,000. If it's 5%, it'd be $5,000 of buyer agent commission that the buyer would have to come up with in addition to all the closing cost and down payment that they're already being required to come up with. And I think that's going to really discourage buyers from hiring buyer agents. This whole lawsuit was about giving buyers, helping lower the cost, helping buyers to be able to negotiate their own commission and not being built into the sales price. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is that a lot of buyers cannot afford buyer agents and they will be going it on their own. And it'll almost go back to the way it was before we had the cooperation agreement that came about in the mid 80s that really revolutionized how buyer agent commissions were paid. So that some of that's just my opinion, but we do know that it's no longer going to be offered directly through MLS, and how it actually shakes out is something only time will tell. They've also said that the NAR has agreed to enact a new rule that would require MLS participants working with buyers to enter into a written buyer agency agreement. And the good news for us in North Carolina is that's already been required. It may be surprising to a lot of people, but about only 20 states in the United States required written buyer agency agreements with buyers if you represented them. Now, through MLS rule change, all 50 states will have to have that. Now, it won't be a state law. It'll be an MLS rule. But here in North Carolina, we've been doing it for a long time. So we already have a written buyer agency agreement. That buyer agency agreement is already where the buyer agrees to pay the buyer agency firm a commission. The big change again will be that we won't seek that compensation automatically directly through MLS. We'll have to seek that compensation indirectly, specifically asking the listing agent if the seller is offering any compensation. So these changes are supposed to go into effect in mid-July of 2024, which is just a few months away. But again, us agents in North Carolina, all we really need to do is do a better job of explaining the compensation issues that we already have in our contract, knowing that some of the wording is going to change in the near future. So, how is it going to affect us directly in North Carolina? Not terribly bad as far as the legalities and the things that we need to do. I do think it's going to affect how buyer agents are paid, and it's going to make it more important than ever for buyer agents to be able to articulate what it is that a buyer is paying for when they hire a buyer agent. We're going to have to make sure that they understand the value that we add when we are representing them and the reasons why we're worth being paid, whatever it is that we negotiate to be paid on. Now, I understand that over the next few weeks and months, I'm sure NAR itself will come out with some more specific things. I am also certain that North Carolina or NCAR will do the same thing. We will have to make a few minor changes to our contracts. I'm sure that'll be coming out in the next few weeks and months. Actually, I'll be with the Real Estate Commission on Tuesday, and I am sure this will be a hot topic where all of us instructors get together and hear the Real Estate Commission's position on it. But I think what they're going to say is we're already in pretty good shape. We just need to do a better job of explaining what it is that we do for our buyers and that the buyers are ultimately responsible for paying our commission. All right, I hope this has been helpful. Just remember, again, I'm not giving any legal advice. I'm just giving you my own personal opinion about what I read in this agreement. If you want to find out some more, all you have to do is go to the NAR website and Google it, and you'll be able to find this exact same document that I've been referring to here. So I hope it's been helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can always reach me at jim@jimweis.com, or those of you who have my phone number, or just Google me and have my phone number, just send me a text, and I'll be glad to try to explain any questions you might have. There's also a Q&A available on the National Association of Realtors website about these things. So if you want to dive into it further, then you're welcome to do so. I hope this has been helpful. Have a great day.